Good morning, class. This is a beautiful picture of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, where it hosts the 2016 Olympics and specifically the water sailing, parasailing events. It's a thing of beauty. On the next slide, you get another opportunity to see some of the sailing events that's hosted in Rio de Janeiro. Another beautiful sight to be seen, and some more sailing events that take place in Guanabara Bay, Rio de Janeiro. Here are some Olympians receiving their medals at Guanabara Bay. Some of the events include parasailing, swimming, kayaking, and these are some of the beautiful Olympians receiving their medals. Beautiful sight. That leads me to my introduction. All the beautiful sights you see of the 2016 Olympics in Rio. With all that beauty, there is a problem, there's an issue. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in my presentation. If you click on the icon here, you should be able to see the introduction of my video.
Short because the water in Rio apparently made her sick. The highly polluted bay used for some of the events was a big concern for athletes and Olympic organizers before the Games, as we showed you months ago. Let's go back to Ben Tracy at Flamengo Beach in Rio. Ben, good morning again.
Good morning. So this is Rio's Guanabara Bay, and this is where the sailing competition is being held. And the water pollution problems out in the bay are well documented. But when you talk to the athletes here in Rio, they kind of shrug it off and say they're just focused on their events. Well, now one of those athletes says the water has given her a bacterial infection and may cost her a medal. If you're watching the Olympics on TV, Rio's Guanabara Bay looks like one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Up close, it looks a bit different.
This bacteria is in this bay.
Will van Blottel is head coach of the Belgian sailing team. He says his star sailor, Avi van Acker, has been diagnosed with a severe intestinal infection. The team's doctor believes she got it from polluted water in the bay. Her coach says she's so weak, he doesn't know if she can be competitive. Did you expect her to win a medal here in Rio?
I was almost certain.
What color?
She would have been really capable of winning the gold.
Extreme water pollution has been a big black eye on the Rio Games, with some even calling it the poop Olympics. But just before the Games, the International Olympic Committee released a statement saying Rio is ready to welcome the world and touting much improved water quality.
And it's really just shocking how much trash that is. Yeah.
When we visited Rio in June, we saw trash covering parts of the bay and a giant plume of sewage flowing into the marina, where Olympic sailors are now launching their boats. 1,400 athletes are now competing in water-based events in Rio, and some will have to swim in it. Would you ever swim in the water?
No,
Never.
never.
Renata Pacau is a microbiologist who took us to parts of the bay near the Olympic events. Her scientific tests show alarming levels of superbacteria, the result of both sewage and medical waste from hospitals.
Almost half of what we generate goes raw into our water bodies and definitely goes to the bay and then to the beaches.
And that's essentially like just flushing a toilet into the water.
Yes.
In order to get the Olympics, Rio promised to install 8 treatment plants on the polluted rivers entering Guanabara Bay. It built 1. It promised to treat 80% of the sewage entering the water and is treating just about half. Those broken promises might cost Avi van Acker an Olympic medal.
She had tears yesterday evening. She was emotional because she worked so very hard for it.
Now, Rio Olympic officials are calling this sailor's case an isolated incident. The State Environmental Department here in Rio is testing the water quality every day. They say that it's good, even safe enough to swim in. But when we asked for the test results, they would not provide any since the Games began. Gail?
Leaving us on a little bit of a cliffhanger.
I did a story earlier this year on an Olympian, a kayaker who was seriously considering not going because of the water conditions. In the end, she decided she is going to go. But I know it's been a big point of discussion for a lot of folks.
It seems like it's the same with Zika. It's horrible that these athletes even have to weigh these two things, competing the dream of your life and then medical
Or competing in
conditions.
something that they're calling poop Olympics. I don't like that part. Thank you, Ben.
And this leads to the title of and subject matter of my presentation, which is Superbacteria and Water Pollution Effects in Rio de Janeiro's Guanabara Bay. Rio Olympics by Joel G. Huggins, that's me. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. First, I'll show you a map of Guanabara Bay, where many low-income people from Brazil live around the bay, which is surrounded by many of these rivers. First, we have the Estrela River here, Iguacu River, Sarapu River, Marapu River, and all these rivers flow into the lake, into Guanabara Bay, going into the Atlantic Ocean, where many of the sewage and stuff flows into the river and pollutes and contaminates the bay. So we get a view here of Guanabara Bay, and also I'll come back to this. These are points of where actually sampling have been taken for water quality and the distribution. Thank you. Yeah, there are many sources of water pollution in the bay. It is estimated a low-income population living around Guanabara Bay is about 4 million urban inhabitants, which is about 45% of the basin's population. There is no sanitation, and the sewage discharge I mentioned earlier is discharged untreated into the bay and into the tributary. This leads to serious environmental and human health problems. The rate of water transmitted disease is quite high, and the sanitation has not improved in Brazil. 65% of the hospitalizations are due to water transmitted disease. And this is from the flow of sewage that flows directly into the bay from these rivers. Here's another view of some of the sewage and other litter that goes directly from the rivers and travels down into the bay. You could actually see a doll here and some other debris. Now, some of these water pollution, which are opportunistic pathogens and drug resistant, they favor the adapted to nutrient-rich habitats, among which are included these pathogenic bacterial lineages that are capable of infecting humans and other life forms in the bay. Now, opportunistic pathogens can either thrive as free living or take up as an infectious lifestyle when in contact with a suitable host. Many genera that include potentially pathogenic bacteria were found in Guanabara Bay, namely Vibrio, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Plasmodium, and Bacilla. Concerning only the culturable fraction of Guanabara-based microbiome, many of the orders Vibonales and Cladiales are extremely abundant, accounting about 50% of the antibiotic-resistant culturable organisms. Well, to deal with all of these pathogenic bacteria and drug resistant, sampling has been done historically and also just before the Olympics. In terms of sediment sampling done in Guanabara, historically most of the environmental monitoring programs that has been conducted in Guanabara Bay have been generally discontinuous and are really based on conventional indicators such as fecal coliform and water quality standards. The assessment of the sewage inputs to aquatic streams over long time scales can be performed by considering the distribution of anthropogenic molecular markers in sediment pores. The objective of this work was to evaluate the space-time variation of sewage inputs into Coonabarra Bay during the last 100 years through the distribution of coprostanol and other sterols in sediment core. The methods used in this type of sediment sampling analytical method. One, you have the total organic carbon and total nitrogen, and the other one is coprostanol and other fecal steroids. They chose many locations around the bay, and these are the associated water depths based on these drilling points, 4S, 7S, and other areas of the bay for this historical sediment sampling. Again, the coprostanol and the stanol and stanomode comparison, we get to see of all the type of sediment samples that were used. The results from sediment sampling, the fecal sterols and especially coprostanols were shown to provide a useful and qualitative indicator of the sewage distribution in Guanabara Bay. As well, the water quality testing has taken place before the Olympic Games in 2016. WHO guidelines for safe recreational water environment recommend a combination of ongoing sanitary survey and inspection, periodic microbial water quality monitoring, and predictive modeling based on historical longitudinal data that should serve as a basis of a water safety plan for the water body and population at risk. In this case, will be the sports persons and visitors attending the Olympic Games in 2016. Although independent testing of the waters in Guanabara Bay showed a high viral load, it was difficult to estimate the risk to health. Also, they currently didn't have the global consensus on the viral testing of water, and more accurate predictor of human health risk would be detect, quantify these model risks based on infectious virus particles in the water of interest. Now, the water quality testing occurred in 2015 during a pre-Olympic sailing event. ISAF wanted to have as much as possible precise insight to the situation in Guanabara Bay. So the testing that took place 1 year leading up to the 2016 Olympics at the Aquisi Rio 2015 sailing event. Now, ISAF requested the Brazilian and Rio authorities to share the water quality data and test the water every second day instead of the weekly testing. Those requests they claimed were fully completed. The results of the water quality testing of this pre-Olympic sailing event in 2015 showed that the pollution peaks were registered on any of the testing points that included all of the force areas. Flamingo Beach, however, was not tested and was not included in testing points, although it is a point of interest in two classes. The Marina de Gloria was certainly the biggest problem, and the open entrance of untreated sewage, which was visible to anybody who takes a walk in the marina. That is also the second hotspot for infection, as many sailors are entering the water via primary contact. Now, these are the water woes Rio was facing. If you see here an aggregate look at the problem in areas in Rio waterways, large circles indicate a higher percentage of areas that failed to meet the standards during testing during this 2015 pre-Olympic sailing event. For example, Flamingo, Botafogo, Sao Conrado, and Barra de Chuca shows a higher percentage, and most of them is coming out of Guanabara Bay. Yeah. Now, what's the effects of the water quality testing of this pre-Olympic sailing event to measure if they would be ready for this Olympics in 2016? Besides evaluating and correcting hygiene and sanitary procedures, health promotion activities, and monitoring of the water testing, the major aim of ISAF medical team was to study the impact of environment on sailors and accompanying entourage. They found out that a total of 688 people who participated in this pre-Olympic sailing event in 2015, 326 sailors, 196 coaches, 181 team members, 43 cases of diarrhea in total were registered during the event. 29 of them among the sportsmen, 6 of them with a clear cluster of those that were infected in tongue without contact with the water. Also, if I go back to my original map, you could see here area side A, side B, and under the Rio Bridge. If I go back to that map, I'll see the Rio Bridge here, B and A. You could get an indication of some of the bacteria that was found and in those areas. And you could see, many different forms of bacteria ranging 10 to 20 to 30 to 40, almost 40% in abundance. That's a lot of bacteria. So, a lot of studies were done on Guanabara Bay, and specifically the ones leading up to the Olympics. A study published in late 2014 had shown the presence of superbacteria classified by the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention as an urgent public health threat off one of the beaches in Guanabara, where sailing and windsurfing events will be held during the game. Among these is the superbacteria, which everyone been talking about besides the Zika. This superbacteria, this was a real concern. It's like pathogenic, drug resistant, and has super resistant lineages. Several species of human pathogens were identified. Example, Vibrio, cholera, and most popular Klebsiella pneumoniae and Shigella, some of which are classified almost as multi-resistant, capable of tolerating 3 or more different classes of antibiotics. Very drug resistant. Now, the first of the 2 new studies reviewed in September by scientists at the Interscience Conference on Antimicrobial Agents and Chemotherapy in San Diego showed the presence of microbes at 5 of Rio's showcase beaches, including the oceanfront Copacabana, where open water and triathlon swimming will take place. This super bacteria is closely linked to the sewage distribution coming in from these rivers and flowing into Guanabara Bay. And you could see a sample here of some of the sewage and dumps and even dull that travels way upstream, way downstream into Guanabara Bay. And this is where they found the superbacteria, as I did identified in the map. Now, this superbacteria, the presence of this resistant bacteria, KPC, was recently reported in those areas in Guanabara Bay. They say the occurrence of the resistant bacteria was registered in 2 sites in a river, as I showed you upstream, that discharges into the bay with all that sewage and other debris, and also on site in the bay at Flamingo Beach, which is close to where the sailing Olympic competitors will occur. That's why they were concerned that in the TV analysis that one of those sailors actually, was infected with that bacteria. Now that Klebsiella pneumoniae carbonensis, excuse my pronunciation, an antibiotic-resistant bacteria was originally only found in untreated hospital waste water, but has now traveled through the waterways, as I was showing you. It traveled through the waterways and then downstream into the beaches and the lagoons. According to United States Center Disease Control and Prevention, the presence of superbacteria creates an urgent public health threat as it can use pulmonary bloodstream bacteria, urinary, as well as gastrointestinal infections and meningitis. The CDC says 50% of patients infected with this bacteria die from it. Scientists say that the severity of the risk posed by the superbacteria depends on individual's immune system. This is another view of the superbacteria that was a real concern in the Rio 2016 Olympics sailing events. So, as back in the beginning, that German sailor, as a TV analysis discovered, Eric Eel fell ill with gastrointestinal infection after competing in a pre-Olympic test event, and it became this big media event. However, there's strong evidence and corresponding huge debate about whether it was because of the superbacteria KPC found as a result of the sewage distribution in Rio's waterways leading into Guanara Bay. As I showed you from the historic sediment sampling from the Stanwell and Coronel comparison, they all claim that it's these bacteria is and the amount of sediment and in the water actually came from the sewage distribution from these waterways. Now, sites where resistant superbacteria were found are marked with a star in the map above at Guanabara Bay. As I showed you before, this is where they were found, the superbacteria. So, in conclusion, we know it came from the waterways and the rivers that carried all of the sewage down into the bay. Now, the Rio authorities and IS claim that, actually it wasn't KPC, it was a multi-drug resistant bacteria, but which didn't actually cause the diarrhea. But everybody who did the who did the analysis, who got the analysis, they believe that the German sailor contracted it from the KPC, and it directly had to do with those polluted Olympic waters from the sewage distribution. However, the water quality testing and historic longitude sediment sampling showed high levels of sewage distribution in Guanara Bay, and that is what researchers said led to the superbacteria that affected this athlete. Thank you so much for your listening, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.